All right. Let's go to last week. All right. Jimmy Devine wins the prize for the longest drive for the Mandarin Summer Series. Jimmy is the preaching minister for the Melbourne Church of Christ. He is a graduate of Harding University, has spent 7 years in youth ministry, started as the preaching minister in Melbourne early 2022, so figuring things out. He's been married to his wife, Michelle, for almost 10 years. They have 2 children. Jimmy loves his family, the Orlando Magic, who I think got a really good draft pick, we'll find out, and enjoying the Florida outdoors. So Jimmy, come bring it to us, brother.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. I can leave this alone, right? Okay. Actually, it doesn't look like I can. It's not letting me do my thing. Here.
Muted.
Let's escape. Can you get this? I can't move the slides when you're. Yeah.
Do you not have control?
I do not. That's kind of important, I think, maybe.
I'll try moving it now.
Nope.
Can you escape and go back in?
Nope. Let's see what happens. Try to stop. There we go. Sweet. Awesome. Sounds good. I love it when it works. Okay. Like you said, my name is Jimmy Devine. I'm glad to be here with you all. I've never been to this church before. I think I applied to be the youth minister here in 2014. No hard feelings, I promise. Okay. But I just remember, I remember applying because it was like, I remember the fruit, Mandarin. I was like, that sounds like an interesting place to be. But I'm glad to be here with you all this morning. And from what I've been told, you guys have been going through different prayers throughout scriptures, different prayers that have been prayed, by different people throughout. And I just got to witness a pray long prayer because you're about it. You don't just talk about it, you be about it. So I think that's pretty special. So today we're going to be in Philippians chapter 1. So if you have your Bibles, go ahead and turn over there. And it's up on the screen if you don't have it in front of you. This is going to be Philippians chapter 1, beginning in verse. All right. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ, filled with the fruit of righteousness that comes through Jesus Christ, to the glory and praise of God. We can say amen to that, I think. But as we begin, the phrase that really stands out to me within this section is more and more. And we're going to get to that in a second. But before we get to that, I want maybe a little bit of back and forth here with you all. Okay, you need to talk to me tonight. I want you to think of something that you wanted more and more of in your life. Anything at all at any point in your life. Anything will work. Does anybody have anything they want to share? More and more of?
I want more and more of retirement. I'm this close to retirement and it can't come.
More and more retirement? Okay. What else?
More and more money.
More and more money? Okay.
Peace.
Peace? You guys are very thoughtful in your answers. I'm not going to be very thoughtful here in a second.
Every health.
Health?
Every potluck is more and more banana pudding.
Banana pudding.
Simple things.
Simple things. It could be anything at all. I remember when I was a kid, I could eat a lot of ice cream. I loved ice cream. I still love ice cream. I could eat a whole Ben & Jerry's by myself. Can't do that anymore, right? I love to eat ice cream. Me and my friends love to go to Taco Bell. Anybody Taco Bell fan here? Taco Bell is great. Okay. But we used to love to go to Taco Bell and I used to get 89-cent bean burritos and easily eat 3 bean burritos. Not very appetizing today, right? I might go for one or two, but not three. Since I'm in Duval County, I can proudly be a Jaguars fan here, right? I think I saw your phone's got a Jaguars. Yeah. I wanted as a kid, I so badly wanted more and more Jaguars wins. Okay. We didn't get to any of those. As a kid, we were a little bit better. We had some playoff success, some good players. I actually grew up going to games. We had season tickets for a very long time. Loved to go. I just wanted more and more wins. They would not give it to me, right? So, but as a kid, I had different wants and different needs. But as an adult, I kind of have the similar responses you do, right? I wish I had more time at times. Like it was mentioned, I have two kids. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. And I had kids pretty early. I was 20 years old when my son was born. And to be honest, I don't really remember those little days, right? The little baby days. And today, I'm actually feeling it right now. We were wrestling around, and my son, who's 9 years old, he's pretty unassuming, but he hurts me a little bit more than he used to. I am feeling it right now. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him like cock back his fist and just punch me in the back of the head. And I said, let's pause for a second, because that actually hurt, right? But I think about these times, and I really cherish these times, but I want more and more of these times, right? I think back, like I said, I don't remember too much of my little kids, but I want more of those times. And I see my sister, she just had her first child, a daughter, not even a year old yet. And I'm able to kind of relive those days kind of through her, and kind of, in a way, not the same. But I want more and more time with her. I want more and more time. I want more peace. I want to have more time with my family where we're not crazy. I feel crazy right now. Okay. I'm the preaching minister, but I'm doing youth ministry still. And summer's crazy. I just got done with camp at CFBC. I want more peace. Okay. I love camp. I want to be nowhere else, but I want more peace in my life. And to be honest, I still want the Jaguars to win more and more every year. Maybe this will be the year. Duval, that's right. I love it. We had a few kids at CFBC last week that were from Argyle, so I got some Duval chants going. So it was all good. But our priorities shift over time, and I think not just the things that we want, but I think even in our Christian walk, the things that we want shift a little bit over time. I vividly remember it was actually at Florida Bible Camp where I had my come to Jesus moment, right? I remember sitting in the auditorium there, and we were singing, and for whatever reason, I started to cry. 16-year-old boys don't like to cry in front of people, but there I was crying. And it was that moment that kind of Jesus entered my life. And, I went back home, and I couldn't be baptized without my mom being there. She would have killed me, I think, if I got baptized without her being there. That's a joke. Okay. But my priorities were a little bit different as a young Christian. I wanted to be in the Word more. I wanted to study more. I wanted to know more. And I wanted to fill my brain with as much as I possibly can so I can know more and more. And that really hasn't changed for me, but my actions have changed in response to wanting to know more. It's not just about wanting to know more. It's about, okay, what can this knowledge do for me today for other people, right? What can I share with other people? What can I do for others, not necessarily just for myself? Right? It becomes less about self and more about others. And when we look at Philippians chapter 1, I get a similar spirit, right? When we look at Philippians, Paul is writing this from prison, and he is very explicitly talking to these people with a deep sense of love and camaraderie, okay? He focuses on all these things that we've talked about, this idea of growing in wisdom, but also growing as a community, okay? He's urging them to move forward, to grow together more and more. Right here it says this, and this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. And so not only does the more and more aspect of this prayer kind of stand out to me, but it's the second part as well, because this is what I would have written, right? If this was my translation, I might have written something like this. And this is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more. Doesn't that sound like a Bible verse to you? It does to me, right? It's fine. It is totally fine. And in fact, you could go several different places to read this exact sentiment, right? They will know you are Christians by the way you love each other, right? Love one another, right? We have this idea of love, but before we get to the wisdom and depth of insight, the knowledge and depth of insight, I just want to park here for just a second, okay? We got this more and more. We need to grow in this, but it's this idea of love first. And I don't have to spend a lot of time here because I'm sure you've heard this before, but in verse 9, if you look in your translation, it says, "This is my prayer that your love may abound more and more." And this is not the kind of love that we're talking about, brotherly love, or in that way, it's this agape love. Nod your heads if you're with me. You've heard this word before, right? This agape, this godly love that God has for his creation, right? It's the kind of love that is self-sacrificial, the kind of love that does not boast. I could go through, we could go all sorts of different places where we talk about this kind of love that God brings to his creation. And I find it interesting in this conversation that we have talking about partnership, we have this conversation talking about growing in knowledge and depth of insight, but it's all rooted in this agape love. It seems significant if Paul is talking about it this way. Paul speaks of partnership. If you want to back up with me here, I got to have some context for this prayer. In Philippians chapter 1, starting in verse 3, "I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel. From the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion to the day of Christ Jesus. It is right for me to feel this way about all of you, since I have you in my heart. And whether I am in chains or defending and confirming the gospel, all of you share in God's grace with me. God can testify how I long for all of you with the affection of Christ Jesus." So with all of that in mind, I hear a few buzzwords that kind of stand out to me. He's talking about this partnership, right? They have together in what? In the things that they enjoy doing, right? No. It's your partnership in the gospel. From the first day until now, you can see this camaraderie that Paul has for this church in Philippi, right? He has this camaraderie, this partnership. Verse 7, "It is right for me to feel this way about all of you, since I have you in my heart. And whether I am in chains or defending and confirming the gospel, all of you share in God's grace with me." You see, Paul is talking about them growing more and more in the sense of love, not just because it's a good idea, right? But it's because he is physically bringing this to these people, whether he's with them or apart from them. This is the type of love that Paul exhibits for these people, defending the gospel or in chains, right? This is who Paul is, and this is who Paul is calling the church to be as well. So we have this sense of this selfless love, this deep connection that they shared together, this real, true, authentic love. And unfortunately, maybe sometimes for the people, Paul expects the same thing from them, right? It is difficult to really manifest this agape love because so much of our lives revolve around our own lives, right? I mean, there's a little bit of selfishness in all of us. Maybe some of us are better than others at being non-selfish. But what Paul is calling them to is a love that involves partnership and cannot be separated from that. So before we get any further, I really just want to hone in on this idea of this love that he's talking about. So like I said before, we're talking about this love, but not only love that abounds more and more, but it abounds more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. So my question is, what does it even mean to love with knowledge and depth of insight? Don't answer it right now. I want you to think about that. Because like I said, my translation, Jimmy's flawed translation, I want you to abound more and more in love. That sounds great. You can put it on a sticker. You can say it in church and you'll be right. But it seems that not only is this love self-sacrificial, not only does this love involve and kind of demand partnership that Paul's talking about, Paul is asking more of this church. Not just to abound more and more in love, but to abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. For some, love is its own thing. So I just want to go through two things right here very quickly to kind of make this point stick out. So I think it's really important when we talk about knowledge and love to be very clear is how we love people matters, okay? The way in which we love people matters. I think about when I first started dating my now wife, then girlfriend. We were in high school. It's crazy. I should have put some pictures up here. I don't know why she started dating me. Okay. I had some really long flowing hair back then. I got no hair now. Maybe that's why she likes me. I can't grow hair anymore. But as a high schooler, I thought I had a good idea of how to be in a relationship. And maybe I did for a 16, 17-year-old. But I quickly learned that the way I want to be loved is not necessarily how my wife wants to be loved, or then my then girlfriend. So we grew together, and we grew and knew how to understand each other more. And so it's one of those things where if we want to have this type of love, this self-sacrificial love, it is imperative that we have this knowledge of how to love each other. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about me and my wife, okay? You ever heard of love languages before? Maybe. My wife's love language is gifts, okay? And before you think she's like, pampered or anything, she's definitely not that. I'm talking little gifts, okay? I'm talking, I go to the gas station and I am getting gas and I happen to go inside. She's going to want peanut butter M&Ms. I just know that. Okay. And she feels, that I'm expressing my love when I give her M&Ms. It's a very cheap date. I understand. I love it. I love it. My wife loves to be listened to. Does anybody else like to be listened to? I think we all do, right? But when we were kind of starting out a relationship, my listening ears weren't very good. And they probably still aren't. I have a lot to grow. But there's those times where she knows that my eyes kind of glass over, and she knows that she's talking to me, but she's not really talking to me. I realize over time that when she's speaking to me, I really need to be listening. And I need to practice active listening, right? I think about even the way with my children. Like I said, I got a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. You could not have more opposite children in this world, okay? You have 2 kids, they're probably going to be opposites, right? My son is very much like his mother, okay? He's very detail oriented. He loves tasks. He loves to get things, what are we doing next? If you have a schedule for the day and he doesn't know it, he's going to ask you every 5 seconds. And he's going to figure it out eventually, because he can be annoying like that, just plain and simple. But my daughter, on the other hand, is the opposite. She's kind of more like me. She'll go with the flow. We're doing this thing right now where the TV hasn't been turned on in several days. Okay. Maybe you've been there. The kids were abusing their TV privileges. My son has a big problem with that. My daughter, she baked a cake yesterday, pretty much by herself, She'll go paint. She'll just kind of do whatever she needs to do to occupy the time. 2 very different people, but I have to love them very differently. I learned that I could hurt my daughter's feelings very quickly, even as a baby. I remember the first time we spanked her, right? I never spanked her again. It was like I hurt her soul that day. And she had to be reasoned and talked to in a different way. And so what I'm getting at here is that Paul is talking about, yes, love each other. Yes, have this selfless, godly love with one another, partnership in the gospel together. All that is important. But we really, really need to know how to love each other. We need to know what they want and really what they need. I don't know if you've ever met somebody like this, but there are some people who don't know how to love people the right way. Unfortunately, a lot of times they're church people, right? They mean well. They might have the best intentions, but they don't know how to love that person in their time of need. I don't know how many times I've had people, who are going through a rough situation and they just get bombarded with calls, bombarded with text messages. And it's like the people, they mean well, but they weren't ready to receive that. So I think people now are better at communicating what they need, right? They're better at communicating, hey, we don't want visitors right now. Just be praying for us. But I think what it involves, if we want to learn how to love people and how to love people, we have to know people. And that's where things get a little bit difficult, okay? And I don't know how it is at Mandarin, but I'm just going to talk about the church at large, okay? The big church, like everybody. I read this here in verses 4 and 5. In all my prayers for all of you, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now. It seems to me that Paul is implying that the church is partnering together to complete a task. It doesn't seem like the church has been doing a very good job of that of late. And again, I'm not trying to talk bad about the church, but it seems like sometimes we're more like a YMCA than we are a people of God, than we are true partners in the gospel. We show up here on Sunday mornings, and the assembly is very important. I love coming together in that community, but sometimes that's it, right? That is it for some people. And I am thankful they're there. I want them to be there. I'm never, ever going to turn anybody away. But if we truly want to be partners in the gospel, if we truly want to abound more and more in this agape love, we need to know each other, and we need to know how to love each other. I apologize. When I come to places, I kind of want people to know who I am. So I tell a lot of stories. Because you might be asking, isn't love enough? Like if I'm showing love, it should be kind of their responsibility to receive it, because, the golden rule we talk about in school, right? To love each other as you'd want to love yourself. We talk about it in the Bible too, right? The second greatest command, to love God and to love others. Shouldn't my love be enough? The problem is that sometimes we don't know how to love each other the right way. I had a great example of this as a classmate I went to Harding with, and I'm not going to mention his name because I'm not going to say very nice things. Okay. But no, we're friends, obviously. I wouldn't say that. I say this very lighthearted. But he was kind of the definition of someone to me that didn't know how to love people the right way. He was the smartest guy in class. He was probably the most handsome guy in class. He could sing, he could play sports. He was very big, whereas I'm a very scrawny guy myself. And so a lot of people kind of envied a lot of the things he brought to the table. But he didn't have the tact to show people love in the way that I think he thought that he did. You might know people like this in your life, right? Where they have all the things and they seem like the type of person that is going to be, wow, I could spend a lot of time with this person. I could grow to be a great friend with this person. But I'll tell you, the last time I saw him, I was like, one day's enough. Okay. I've had my fill of you probably for the rest of the year, right? Still a friend. I still love him, but I love him over there, right? He's not for me right here. And what I think it is that we didn't form a close enough relationship maybe to where he knew how to love me, and I certainly didn't know how to love him. And that's partially on me. But I think what it involves, if we want to learn how to love people, we need to enter into a relationship and partnership with them very intentionally, right? I shared examples of how I was able to love my wife and how I love my kids. And I could give you example after example of my best friends, how they want to be loved and how they want to experience love. But the reason why I know that is because I know them. And what Paul is calling us here to do is to know each other, right? We talked about this love. We talked about this agape love, this self-sacrificial love. Paul is asking us to enter into that with knowledge, to learn, to grow. And I feel like Paul is kind of borrowing a little bit here from the greatest command, right? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, your mind too, right? And your strength. There's this idea that just saying, oh, I love you will not be enough. There has to be more to it. So when we enter into this loving relationship, we have to learn how to love each other. And love without knowledge, and again, I promise I'm not trying to bash the church, but we also know this character at church too, I think, that the grumpy person who doesn't really be nice to people at church. I remember growing up, I had a lot of those people in my life. I went to a very small church and there was no youth group, right? And you better not make a sound at the wrong time or you're going to get the death glare from that person looking back at you, right? You're going to get the death glare. And what mom would always say is you got to be good because that person has done so much good. They love so many people. It's like, well, he's definitely not loving me right now. I promise you that. And I think we're all laughing because we know these people. And again, I don't want you to walk away, man, Jimmy has nothing good to say about the church, but because I think this is the ideal this partnership in the gospel, but sometimes we kind of fall short of what we're being called to. True. Right? We fall short of what we're being called to. This partnership, this agape love to grow more and more, it involves intention. And I can't say that enough, that we need to intentionally step into this partnership together so that our love may grow in knowledge.
Jimmy,
Yeah.
don't you think we don't know each other because when we come to church, we usually just say, hi, how are you? Is everything okay? And that's the end of it.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a clue and you don't have a clue about my life.
Absolutely.
And I told some friends of ours that, some members of the church, that we need to tell our story. We need to get together and let me tell you a story about my past. You all know my brother. He went to church and he got spanked every Sunday by my mother. And one Sunday he was so bad that he got spanked by the preacher's wife too.
Oh man.
I always tell you, 3 things for sure on Sunday was that you were going to church, you were going to get a spanking,
Yeah.
and then mother would fry chicken.
Hey.
Now, y'all need to know that about my brother.
Yeah.
But I'll tell it on him instead of me,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
I was the younger sister watching all this happen.
Yeah. I think, those stories have to be part of who we are.
Yes,
Right?
yes, our stories
Absolutely.
are.
I mean, that's all we see throughout scripture, right? That's all we see. Like we just spent last week at CFBC just briefly having like the 3,000 foot view of David's life. We barely scratched the surface. And the thing that I'm finding about David is that it's a story after story of the peaks and the valleys. And I think after you kind of spend some time with David, you kind of feel like you know David, right? I don't know David, a long time ago, right? But I know David because I've been David, you've been David. And I think that a lot of times we come to church and we have this idea of who people are, right? You seem to fit this type of box, therefore you are this type of person, right? And we make these assumptions, but we don't take the time to get to know each other. And I think, and again, I don't want to, be so repetitive, but this word, your partnership in the gospel, that sounds like a team to me. And a team's not going to grow together if they don't know each other. And so something that we've been really trying to do, and I'm sure you all do as well, is we just try to eat together. People, for whatever reason, food brings out the best conversation a lot of times. And what I found being from youth ministry and kind of transition, I'm still doing youth ministry. We learn more about each other by playing together, by eating together, by just spending downtime together. But it seems like sometimes when we graduate out of the youth group, we stop playing together, right? I watch my kids make best friends in 15 minutes in the playground with random strangers. They want to invite those people over to my house. I'm like, hey, maybe not today, okay? But I think we kind of lose this because we think that we have to do certain things in church, when in reality, it's like, no, we're supposed to still play together. We're supposed to still eat together. We're supposed to still share life together. And we're not going to know how to love each other unless we do that, right? And so I encourage you to keep sharing those stories. The ones that make people laugh and and again, I don't want to keep bringing up camp, but there were some tears shed at camp because people were sharing their stories.
Not all stories are happy.
No. But what the best part about a story though, is a lot of times when you sit across from someone and you share a story, you realize we have a whole lot more in common than we do not in common. Mm-hmm. Because in our world today, we want to say this talking head that's yelling over here is smarter than this talking head that's over here. But everybody's yelling at each other and nobody's actually listening. But when we listen to each other, we find out, hey, you bleed just like me. And what's really cool about being Christians is that under the banner of Christ, that's the most unifying thing that anybody could ever have in common. So I don't care what your favorite ice cream flavor is. I don't care your favorite NFL team or whatever it is. Those things don't matter. If we're under the banner of Christ, this partnership in the gospel seems a whole lot more tangible to me. this agape love, this learning how to love people in a very loving, self-sacrificial environment. And so we talked, about this abounding more and more in knowledge, but this depth of insight thing is a little bit different. And it sounds very similar, but I see it a little bit differently. I see this depth of insight as a discerning heart. Okay, we use that word in church a lot, discernment. Really what I found that kind of to be in my life is that I pray, and if my heart goes a certain direction, I believe the Spirit's leading me that way. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, okay? But I believe that in this context, when we talk about our love abounding more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, it's allowing the Spirit to control our movements and to control our hearts. And it's really easier said than done. This word discernment is very churchy. It's a churchy word. I get that. And again, it is easier said than done. But I believe when we have the heart that is self-sacrificial, this agape love, and we are seeking to go into deeper relationship with one another, this idea of being led by the Spirit is not so crazy anymore. This prayer doesn't seem so just churchy anymore, right? And I say that with the most loving term, right? That your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, so that you may be able to discern what is best and may be pure and blameless for the day of Christ. Because it seems like not only is the church's mission to grow together here, but we're preparing for something later, right? I'm reading this book right now. I highly recommend it, called Letters from a Skeptic. It's a dialogue between a father and a son. The father's atheist and the son is a theologian. And a word that the son uses, and I love it, and it's been on my mind for a long time, is that the actions that we have here on earth have an eternalization effect on where we're going in the future, right? The actions that we make and the choices that we make today, they eternalize our soul. So like when we're making bad decisions, obviously we're being eternalized in the opposite direction of God. But when we're making choices and discerning the Spirit, we're eternalizing our souls to be with God forever one day. And so I think when we enter into a relationship, when we have one another, when we're growing in knowledge of how to love each other, this discernment is no longer me, myself, and I, but it's in community, right? And this community not only builds us up when we're down, but builds us up when we couldn't, be any higher. And so this discernment allows us to ask tough questions in a good environment. This discernment allows us to be led by the Spirit. It also allows us to ask the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? The times where we're lost and we're saying, okay, I get this idea of partnership. I get this idea of love, but why am I still doing what I'm doing? When we're in community and when we're partnering together, I believe that question's a whole lot better to ask in community, right? When you're by yourself, those doubts, they stack up, those doubts that pile up, and they drive you away from the community. But my hope is that the church can be a place that says, hey, where have you been? We miss you. Where have you been? I care about what happens to you next. I heard you all praying about a student, right? Who's going to be moving away. Keep praying for that student. He's not going to be here with you, and it's going to be very easy for that student to not be connected anymore. Allow him to know that this is how you see the world, that you are partners in the gospel, but not only in the gospel, that you love him and that you want to know how to love him more, and you want to know how your heart can be led in a way to serve him the best way possible. That might be connecting him to another church home. That might be just sending him a care package. Care packages are great. They're awesome. And that alone, I think, does more than you would ever know. That alone, just that simple, didn't take you very much time, that simple act of love is just saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hey, since you're not here, we still want you to feel like you're part of this family, and we love you no matter what. And so I just wanted to leave you with that. And as I was reading that, there's this idea of more and more, it seems to me that there's more to come as well, right? We talked about the wants. I wanted to eat all the ice cream in the world. I can't do that anymore, right? I wanted the Jaguars to win a few more games. They can't do that anymore. No, I'm just kidding. But we get shaped and we grow, and the things that you wanted as a child are not necessarily the same things you wanted as an adult. And I think when we grow and mature in our faith, this idea of more and more, it doesn't intimidate us. For me, I was so intimidated by this type of verbiage. It's like, I'm never going to achieve that goal. But now as I'm getting older, it's like, thank God I'm never going to achieve that goal here on earth. There's more to pursue. There's more to do, and there's more love to understand. I will tell you, I am so thankful that the 17-year-old Jimmy is not in this body still loving my wife the same way he did then. And I think for our faith, it's the same thing. If you have the same faith you had as a 12-year-old, I don't think you're reading this more and more word very, very clearly. Abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight. Allow this to be the type of love that you abound more and more in. Let's pray. God, I thank you for this time, and I thank you for giving us the space to really just get into this prayer. I thank you for just a safe space where I don't know any of these people, and they don't know me, but under the banner of Christ, you still say that we are partners in the gospel together, whether we know each other or not. God, thank you for that truth. God, please help us to abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight so that we can love each other, know how to love each other, and allow the Spirit to direct us as we go along the way. God, help us to take this idea of more and more to heart as we go from this place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Before we close out, I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions I forgot to mention. If anybody has anything else they wanted to add or say or challenge me, or I don't know, you can do whatever you want. I'm leaving, right? I'm just kidding. But it was really fun to be here with you all tonight, and very glad you had me come visit. So
I want to bring something. If you all have never been to the Melbourne Church of Christ, it's a little different from other churches because it's an international church. And it's amazing going there and see so many people from other countries. And so I was just asking Jimmy beforehand, I'd love to know sometimes how you inculcate these different cultures into your body. Because I think we're all going to face that, don't you guys think? The people coming across the border,
right,
and everything. I hope we have but they are truly an international church, and it works for them. So I encourage you, if you've never been, go.
Yeah, come hang out. We'd love to see you. And Steve Puckett was there I'm sure many of you have met Steve Puckett before. He's been there for a long time, and our leadership, a lot of the same guys have been there for a long time. And it's a blessing because they're intentionally praying for those things. Every conversation we have is through the lens of, okay, what are we doing? Who are we missing? Who doesn't have a voice? And so making sure people have a voice is very, very crucial to, and we're not perfect, we have a lot of, shortcomings as well, but we do strive to make that our mission for sure. So.
I think it sounds to me like to some degree you're advocating that we would have more and more love for each other if we had more and more knowledge about each other. Sort of strikes me that would make for a really interesting class, a class on sharing.
Maybe like a small group.
Yes.
That's what I mean.
Only we could meet at other people's homes on, say, Sunday nights.
Wow. Sounds like you guys got it.
Might be coming soon this fall where
It's
we
coming.
do like that.
Think about your story.
And we genuinely share stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
I'm tracking with.
Good. Very good. That's the one thing that going from youth ministry to, that's the one thing I was afraid of losing was the, for lack of a better term, playtime. It's so important. I love getting into the word and I love asking tough questions, but I also love being silly. I love playing cards and I love playing dominoes and all these different things and just spending time together because that's where the conversations happen. Right. And so I just want to encourage you to don't be afraid to play. And, whatever the youth minister's doing, Dakota's a good guy. I'm a big fan. So see what they're doing and say, how can we do this? So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank
you, Jim.
Thank you.
Are you driving back?
Yes.
Safe trip.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.